Okay, and we are here and live.
Alrighty, good evening, everyone. I'm Kendra Lucking, the founder of the United States Field Hockey League, or USFHL, and I'm also the lifetime engagement manager at USA Field Hockey, where I have the privilege of supporting adult field hockey growth. And so I just want to start this off by thanking you, the players, the coaches, the leaders, the volunteers for just really the passion and the time that you pour into adult hockey. None of this would exist without you. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and kick off the AGM by telling the USFHL story. Then Lance Wood is going to walk through the agenda, meeting logistics, and vision. So for those of you that are newer to the community, here are the basics. USFHL is the national adult league in the US that's sanctioned by USA Field Hockey to oversee the system that leads to the USA Field Hockey Adult National Club Championship, or NCCs. The men's and the women's teams that win the title at NCCs are officially the best adult team in the country for that year. So USFHL provides the structure, oversight, and connections that unite adult organizations and leagues nationwide. However, it is more than just titles. At its core, USFHL is just all about keeping people in the game, really preventing that post-college drop-off, promoting all adult hockey and help making it local, accessible, sustainable, fun, and just grow all levels of competition so that it fits into the life of an adult in the USA. All right, you can go ahead and flip to the next slide. Alrighty, so USFHL, the history. How did we get here? So I founded USFHL about 10 years ago, and the idea came from my journey. While coaching at a top club in the Netherlands, I saw how powerful their adult hockey culture was. Local clubs full of lifelong players. They're loyal to their teams and their teammates, competing every weekend with families involved and just community built around the sport. It wasn't just exercise, it was pride, loyalty, and connection. And I wanted more of that in the US. So when I returned to the US in 2016, I knew that some adult hockey existed, but it was fragmented. Many adults didn't even know when they had opportunities in their backyard to play. Or maybe the adult experience didn't match their expectations. So they didn't look into other options and they just stopped playing. And so that gap is really what sparked USFHL. So in 2016, I hit the road, met with a lot of different adult leaders nationwide. And in 2017, we launched our first nationals with 10 organizations. And on that trip, I met Lance Wood, and he's been involved from the beginning and is now the newly elected president of USFHL. And you'll hear from him next. I did want to highlight a few other things. First, challenges along the way, just because a number of those challenges still exist, and they really influence some of the details that we're going to be talking about later in the AGM. So I learned on the road trip while talking to different leaders that the adult hockey landscape in the US is incredibly diverse. What works well for adults in Nashville looks very different in Los Angeles or Miami or New York City. And adult organizations over the years have grown with really different structures, histories, different philosophies that were really often shaped by the passions of their founders. And so this diversity creates sometimes a complex and confusing national infrastructure. And as the league, USFHL, we need to navigate that complexity, where we need to balance fairness with also this big desire to grow adult hockey in the US. So we want to welcome new organizations from entrepreneurial areas that really have a lot of potential to grow adult hockey, while also still enforcing rules fairly and consistently for playoffs. And then, when you add in scarce resources like field space or competing interests and just the natural politics of sport, just the challenges are real. But that's why USFHL is so important, to bring us together, to get us rowing in the same direction, to address these challenges in adult hockey, and really just to build something lasting, because we know the potential of adult field hockey in this country. One other thing I wanted to call out, because it's been a really important step along the way, is the partnership with USA Field Hockey, because we've been stronger together. So this partnership matters because USA Field Hockey shares our passion for growing adult participation. And together, we've been investing in the infrastructure needed to address these challenges for the adult game to really thrive in the United States. So since 2019, USFHL has had this unique partnership as the official USA Field Hockey sanctioned league system for adult NCCs. And each year, the system has grown, new organizations joining, demand outpacing the spots that we have at NCCs. So now the sanctioned regional qualifiers are expanding across the country. They started in 2022 in the Southeast. And the great thing about now these regional qualifiers is, yes, they make qualification for NCCs more fair, but they also create more local, high quality competition for local adult club teams. And that brings us to today. So the next chapter and this new leadership transition. So today, USFHL is really at an exciting inflection point. This past year, over 30 certified or endorsed organizations had 60 teams competing in regional qualifiers for just 20 coveted spots at NCCs between men and women. And now we have a newly elected leadership team in place. They are talented, energized, and just ready to take USFHL to the next level. And so as founder, really my priority is preserving our mission and core values to really grow adult participation and engagement, and just to promote every level of adult hockey, be inclusive, and really support the leaders in adult hockey. And I am confident that this new board will not only uphold those principles, but expand them in ways that I never could have achieved alone. And so I'm so inspired by them, and I get to turn it over to them. I'm just closing out, this part with a call to action. And that's really just to support each other, to support these new board leaders, to support your local leaders in adult hockey whose work is often thankless, but is incredibly vital. And just remember why we're here: to grow the game, expand adult participation, and just make field hockey, a lifelong sport in the US. And so with USFHL and USA Field Hockey aligned, I know we're only just getting started. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lance to walk through vision and introductions.
Hi, I'm Lance Wood, the new president of the USFHL. Before I begin, I would just like to echo Kendra, and again, thanking everyone for your involvement and your participation. The only way this game grows is by the dedication of people like yourselves to grow at a grassroots level. We're here to help and we're here to support. And thank you, Kendra, for all of the vision and everything you've built at this point to give us a foundation to help with that. But it only works because of everyone's involvement and their dedication. So thank you, all of you, before we go any further. Very quickly, I just want to introduce this new board of which I'm a part of. I'm very excited by this board. I think we cover a wide variety of skill sets and abilities, and I think we have a great setup here to move field hockey in the US to just further strengths. Briefly going through that, you've obviously got myself in the new position as president. We have two vice presidents, Graham Jackson and Elizabeth Hitty. Elizabeth, I'm sure you all know, is from Atlanta, and Graham is from DC. However, Graham grew up on the West Coast, so also brings that influence as well. Misham, we have as our secretary, again, from the West Coast, LA, playing with Santa Monica. And then we have a new incoming treasurer, Raja Bal from Minutemen up in Boston. Has a wealth of finance experience and is going to really help us get that side to a strong foundation again. And lastly, but not least, we have Kendra. Don't worry, people, she is not going anywhere. She is still involved with us as the past president and is still going to be there and working with us going forward. So no need to panic there. Moving on, I'd like to lay out the agenda for today. First of all, we're going to talk briefly about the USFHL's purpose and vision. Kendra has already touched on quite a lot of that, but we will talk a little bit further on it. Then I will be handing over to Elizabeth to talk about the adult hockey organization, the national championship pathway. Then we're going to hand over to Graham to talk a little bit about the media work in progress. And then finally, we will go to a Q&A session, which is going to be chaired by Misham. For anyone that does have any questions during the process of this meeting, there is a link in the YouTube description that will take you to a Q&A form. I am going to caveat that whilst every single question we get will be answered, not all of them will necessarily be answered on this meeting. I do apologize if something that you asked does not quite get to that point. But we do want to keep this streamlined, and we are very aware of everyone's time. However, I do encourage you, if you have any questions, do please fill that form in. As I mentioned, every single question will be addressed and will be answered in a timely manner. Elizabeth, you can move to the next slide, please. So first of all, one of the things I think that we need to always look at when we're trying to work out anything for the USFHL is our aim is obviously to grow field hockey in the US as a whole. However, quite simply, just looking at that map, you can see the geography and the landscape is so varied depending on where you go. Kendra touched on the fact that there's a different access to resources. If you go to somewhere like Florida, you have some great development and some great clubs, including youth all the way up to adult, but their access to fields is limited. They all have play on field turf. You get up to the Northeast, we've got a lot more water-based turfs available, but a lot of them are controlled by colleges. It's not always easy to get on there. You also have the fact that, unlike some of the European models and some of the other countries, not necessarily every junior club has adults or every adult club has juniors. So there's different demand and different needs for those turfs. So long story short, and we will go more into the geography when Elizabeth is talking, we are trying our best to build a model that works for everywhere, whilst also at the same time understanding that this is an evolving platform and this is ever-growing sport in this country, hopefully from strength to strength. And we aren't going to get everything right. We will have an AGM every year, and we will work through the challenges, and we will work with it. Again, things like the Q&A, things like the regional boards you have, things like the ability to just reach out to us and ask questions or give us feedback will help us grow this game. Kendra mentioned it when she described the fact that USA Field Hockey and us working in partnership, we're stronger together, but that goes to all of us. We're stronger together if we're working as a team. So we would be very open to feedback and work where we can. But the main aim of us is to grow local hockey, promote local clubs, and grow a system similar to you see in other countries where we have that club championship, which is what we're doing our best to get to. And people would identify themselves as being from a club, whether that club would be DC Dragons, whether it would be Santa Monica, whatever it is, they would identify as that club, not as the league. If you go to NEFA, you've got some clear identity in their clubs, Greenwich, New York Islanders, plenty of others as well that have a great history. And we just want to see that grow. Moving on to the next slide. So one thing we also do need to talk about, and Kendra touched on it, is that we want to make field hockey a lifelong sport. USA Field Hockey mentioned this a lot, and USA Field Hockey are clearly part of that, and working with them is something that has helped. You see on this slide, you've got the youth exposure. A lot of players start playing when they just find a local rec league or a clinic or something else. And then that can lead to more developed high school or the junior development routes that USA Field Hockey put in there. It could then lead to a college career. It may not, but we want to keep that option open to all those players. Then once you get to your adult life, that's when the USFHL comes in. And then as you get a little bit older, like myself, you might want to look more towards the Masters performance. And that, again, is somewhere where we see the benefits of working with an organization like USA Field Hockey. USA Field Hockey have partnered very closely with Masters over the last few years. And whilst I think we all will admit there have been hiccups along the way, the Masters program is stronger now for their partnership. And that's something that we are working on with our partnership with USA Field Hockey as well, to just make a stronger field hockey community in general. The last thing I would just say as we move into this is you're going to hear from a lot of people over the course of tonight. The next few slides you see and everything that is said has been a lot of work from this entire board. There have been sleepless nights. There's been many meetings where we've discussed everything. As I said, I don't think we've got everything perfect. This is a work in progress. It's going to continue to evolve, but this is all of us working together. And honestly, I'm very proud of this board and the hours and time they've put into it. So please take everything as you see it, and please continue to work with us. Elizabeth, I will hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Lance. Hey everyone. All right, so I have two sections to cover with you today. The first is the landscape of U.S. adult hockey, and then the second is probably the reason most of you are on the call, and that is the national championship pathway. So we're going to hit the adult hockey piece first. While the USFHL does run its own tournaments, there's a lot else out there in terms of adult hockey, and I think a lot of you take part in all of the different areas of that. And we don't want to recreate the wheel. We don't want to change it, ask people to do different models or anything like that. What we're trying to do is take what already exists and organize it in a way where people can find what they're looking for, the thing that's right for them, the ideal, type of hockey, the ideal club team, the ideal tournament, so that everybody's having fun, whatever that fun is for them. So we have taken, like I said, the existing landscape of adult hockey, and we've put them into 4 different categories or tracks, whatever you'd like to call them. The first is social, the second is competitive, then we have the championship track, which is the national championship pathway that USFHL runs, and then you have masters. So the big difference between all of these is there's something for everybody. The social, think Atlanta Cup, Tampa Cup, you're there, you're having a good time, you're drinking a beer on the sidelines. It might be on field turf, it might be 7v7, it might be 11v11, you might be playing co-ed, maybe there's separate divisions, men's and women's. But the attitude there is really, you're playing, you're having a good time, and the level is, it might be high, it might be low, I don't know, but it's a social event. The second is competitive. So these are 11v11 or indoor events. Think something like Chicago Cup, think the Boston Indoor Tournament, etc. These are events that, again, might be separate divisions, might be co-ed, but they have a social event. Kendra used the term weekend warrior. People are flying in from around the country or maybe not, to have a good time with their friends on the weekend, play some high-level competitive hockey. I've participated in Chicago Cup and I really enjoyed it. It's really high level of hockey. So that's the competitive division. This championship piece, most of this presentation talks to that, but the real differentiator for this championship piece is, and as Lance mentioned, it's this club affiliation and this local club growth. So this is where your rosters are going to be based on those player eligibility standards. And the real differentiator for the championship category is the practice time. So this isn't just about showing up and playing on the weekend. It's about development, player development, club development, local organization development, and growth. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that section. And then it would be remiss if we left masters out. So we had to make sure we included masters on one of these tracks. But there's a really strong pull for more masters opportunities, rightfully so, especially with the Masters World Cup coming up next year. A lot of people participate in USFHL events and other adult tournaments that also participate in masters. So we're hoping to see that grow, and we wanted to make sure that it was its own category for those people who might not really want to play with the post-collegiate 20-year-olds anymore and want their own events. So that's how we're going to be organizing tournaments and helping people find the ideal place for them to play. So when we go to our website, and Graham will talk about that at the end, you'll be able to see, not just what tournaments exist, but what types of tournaments they are. And similarly, clubs will be able to start identifying and where they want to participate. And that might be across all of these, which is fantastic. So moving into talking a little bit about the national championship pathway. So right now there's we identified a playing opportunity gap in the United States. So there's a lot of existing competitive events. There's a lot of existing social events. There's also, obviously, if you want to play for a national team, you can continue through the U.S. Olympic pipeline or go the Masters training camps with USA Field Hockey. What there was, I don't want to say lacking, but something that the USFHL National Championship pathway is going to hopefully fill is this need for serious, competitive, elite playing opportunities, whether that's post-collegiate athletes in the U.S., whether that's international men, international women who come here for work. This idea of, if you're in Europe, you play for your junior team and then you play for your senior team and you have these premier leagues and these premier divisions. And it continues to be a serious event where, you're focused, there's a coach, you're developing, you have a press, you have an outlet. You have all these conversations. You're part of a club team, and that's where the USFHL National Championship Pathway events will sit. All right, I'm going to keep moving. So that segues us into discussing the National Championship Pathway. So this is for 2026, the USFHL board's plan for the National Championship Pathway. Basically, the goal, and I sort of touched on this on the previous slide, but if you look at the left side of this slide, the goals here are to create a serious competitive environment, ideally the top division of field hockey in the United States. I know some other tournaments might be equally competitive, more competitive, maybe international players are coming in. So the level of play is not necessarily the key indicator. It's structured field hockey. It's player continuity year to year. There's players are being developed either locally through practices or by playing with the team tournament after tournament. And we can start to get into building a local community, maybe even a fan base, and these pipeline relationships of juniors and seniors playing for the same club team for those clubs that it's relevant for. So when we look at this right side, the National Championship Pathway, it starts with that local training level. And then any clubs can participate in the play-in qualifiers. The top clubs in your region participate in the regional championships, and then the top clubs in the country would participate in the national championship. And each year we'll name the #1 club in the United States for the men and the #1 club in the United States for the women. So this championship pathway, of course, it starts with the on-the-ground local practice, but it leads to crowning a champion. And that's something that excites me. It's something that excites the board. And hopefully, if it excites you, great. If not, there's a ton of other areas of adult hockey in the United States for people to plug in and play in a way that's fun and exciting for them. So with that said, we're going to get into some of the policies and processes for 2026 for the USFHL National Championship Pathway. These are, as Lance said, we're going to reevaluate these each year. We're going to see what works, what doesn't work, and all under the lens of what's here on this slide: serious competitive hockey, high performance, player continuity, club development, player development, local growth, etc. And we're really excited for the journey and hope you are too. So without further ado, these are going to be the women's regions in 2026. There's very limited change from the previous years. The big changes are New York City will now be its own region. They have a very established league. They will continue playing in that league, and their qualification will be through that. All of these other regions, and this is the other big change, will all qualify through a regional club championship. So that Northeast region now includes New England and upstate New York with Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The Mid-Atlantic's the same, the South is the same, the West is the same. And this central region where we know clubs exist, and I hope you're on this call, that'd be great. We really want you guys to get involved and start playing. And when there's enough critical mass, they'll have their own regional club championship. But for now, they'll play in through the Northeast region if they want a bid to nationals. So this is the women's region. And you can also see on this slide that there's regional leadership. So based on which region you're in, these are going to be your main points of contact. So their main roles and responsibilities are going to run the regional club championship and play an event if there's a play-in qualifier for your region. They're also your point of contact to provide feedback, talk to them, what works, what doesn't work with the region, and they'll be having regular touch points with the USFHL board to provide that feedback loop and help us grow. As I think both Kendra and Lance mentioned, the difficult geographies across the country, like this feedback loop with the regional leadership team will allow us to have insight into some of the challenges and also not just challenges, but also best practices, things that are working for different regions and how we can implement them across other regions as well. So this is what the women's region will look like. And then here's what the men's regions will look like. So this is slightly different from last year, I believe. So the South is the same and the West is the same. The Central, I have a similar comment there as with the women. The teams that want to play in from there will play in with the East region, and New York City will be its own region, same as on the women's side. There's 6 or 7 established teams there, and they'll qualify through league play. Now, the big change on the men's side is that now the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast will be together. They'll just be called the East region. The goal here is that we have at least a critical mass of 3, 4, or 5 men's teams playing in that regional club championship event, which will be really exciting. It won't just be, a game between DC Dragons and Philly Premier to try to see who comes to the National Club Championship. But now we have the ability to offer another real great competitive playing opportunity for these men's teams on the East Coast. So hopefully, one day there's enough men's teams that we can separate these regions back out again. But at least for now, this is going to create a really good competitive environment, and hopefully these teams can help each other grow and play against each other this coming year. All right. So the next slide is on player eligibility, which is probably why everybody's on this call. Okay, so before we talk about this right side, we're going to touch on the left side. So the goal here, and at this point, I think we're just harping on it, but we're looking to create local structured adult club development. There's a lot of existing opportunities in the United States for, weekend warrior type tournaments, playing with friends at a high level, at a social level, et cetera. And we really want to help make those events more accessible and people more aware of them so they can take advantage. Now, when it comes to the National Club Championship pathway, the objectives here are to encourage dedication to a local and consistent club, make roster creation fair and equitable. So the same pool of players is each club team is basically drawing from the same relevant pool of players. And then make this process simpler. So there was a lot of back and forth between both the RCC and the NCC this past year, and I'm sure previous years as well. I just weren't privy to them, and I give Kendra a lot of credit for that. But the goal here is to make this process as simple as possible with very clear and transparent standards, so everybody knows whether or not they can play for a different team. The clubs know whether or not a team's eligible to play for them. And on the next slide, we're going to talk about the process, which is going to make rostering so much easier, and I'm really excited for it. So let's dive into the rules. First is the geographical rule of lives within 50 miles of the club at the time of the event. Now, we can probably put any guideline around this, but when it comes to local structured club growth, geographically it makes the most sense, and this also will create fair and equitable roster creation across the country. So if you live within 50 miles of your club at the time of the event, you're automatically eligible to be approved to play for that club. Now, you'll see the footnote on the bottom. I know it's really little, but we didn't want to make this slide too busy. If there's no participating clubs within 50 miles, and a participating club is defined as a club that has played in a USFHL National Championship Pathway event in the past 5 years. So if there's no participating club within 50 miles of your residence, then it goes to 150 miles. If there's still no participating club within 150 miles of your residence, then it goes to the same state. If there's still no club within your state, hopefully that changes, but for now, you'll become a free agent. And we have a slide on the free agent process that we'll get to in a minute, but it would go to the next geographically close club by GPS distance. So we're really giving everybody a pathway to play for a participating club here, while also identifying and creating some rules and restrictions that will make it fair and equitable across the board. Now, there is a call out on this number 1 rule, and that's men's New York City NEFA region. And this applies for just the men's division. So men, the NEFA League, as most of you know, their model is that players can come from wherever and they can play on different teams and they can qualify for the NEFA playoffs if they play 3 games. And I think that rule might have changed, but at least that's my understanding of it from previous seasons. So I'm sorry if I quoted that incorrectly. But we have worked with NEFA and their regional leader moving forward, and we've determined that the qualification for playing in national club championship, if you are on a NEFA team, will be that you participated in at least 3 games in at least 2 different weekends. And this is for men's NEFA. So if you don't live within 50 miles of New York, if you live within 50 miles, you qualify already. But if you don't live within 50 miles of New York, then that is from a men's NEFA perspective how you can qualify for that team. All right. So number 2 is that you competed with the club in at least 1 national club championship pathway event in the last 2 seasons. So when we get to the process, on the next page, you'll see that we've actually already paired everybody with the club that you last participated with in the last 2 years. So obviously you're going to have to, new players are going to have to qualify through number 1 or number 3. But once you start playing with a team, if you play for, 5 years and you live in Boston, you play with Minutemen for 5 years, and then your job takes you to Chicago, you can continue playing with Minutemen as long as you continue playing within that 2-year span. And if you look at number 4, you have not played in an NCC pathway event with somebody else. And then this third one is, this is really our goal is to engage post-collegiate players. And the best way to do that is probably using their current network of teams. And I know this won't apply to every club. It'll only apply to clubs that have both junior and senior teams. But if a player played in their final NCAA game within the past 12 months, and they were a member of the club as a senior in high school, so right before they went to the NCAA, and we'll measure that through whether or not they participate in USA Field Hockey's RCC, NCC pathway events that year, then they have 12 months to play with that club after they graduate from college. So all of these are the 3 rules. These are the 3 ways that you can be eligible to play for a club in the National Club Championship pathway event. So that's the play-in qualifier, the Regional Club Championship, and the National Club Championship. They will be on our website. We will be answering lots of questions about this. I don't want to spend 20 minutes giving examples here. So examples will be listed on the website. FAQs will be listed on the website. We'll be happy to give everybody support in understanding these and understanding also how, where you fit, what your situation is. So we have asked Misham if there's any individual personal questions of, does this work for me? Does that work for me? We will not be answering them on this call. You can email us at info@usfhl.com, or you can put the question in the form and we will email the response to you. So any individual, personal, do I qualify, do I not qualify? We'll answer those questions, but not on this call. We'll email you after. Okay, so that's player eligibility standards. That's how you qualify to play on a team. And again, we're doing this to create local structured adult competition. These only apply to the national championship pathway events. And this is for 2026. Okay, so the next slide is going to talk about the process. So this is how you get approved and how you roster. And this is in the spirit of making this as simple as possible for everybody, from club admins to regional leadership to USFHL board members and also players. So first things first, and this is number 0 because it's already been done. We have a player affiliation database. So this has been populated with everyone who participated in the previous 2 annual seasons. So that's 2024 and 2025, with their name, their division, so men or women, their region, their club affiliation. So this would have been the last club you played for within that time period. or most recent, I should say, and then the USA Field Hockey membership number. So this will be at 9:30 p.m. or whenever this call ends. If it ends later than that, it will be open on our website. You can go check that out. And then that leads me to number 1, which is the club affiliation form. So this will also be on the same page on the website, so you won't have to go anywhere to find it. And don't go looking right now. It's not up there yet. It will be when this meeting ends. So you can go take a look at that form, and then moving forward, in order to change anything on the database, like if you want to transfer clubs, if you want to add a new player, if you want to, your USA Field Hockey membership number is incorrect, or anything like that, or if you like move and need to change your location and city and state, you can go and submit this club affiliation form. There will be an open transfer window this year until December 1st, 2025. So you won't have to get approval to transfer clubs from your previous club or your new club. You will only have to get approval from USFHL board. Obviously that is within the 50 miles and you're eligible to play for that team. But there is an open transfer window until December 1st. So you can go ahead and submit that club affiliation form if you plan to play for somebody different next year. And then new players and transfers can, at any time throughout the year, go and submit that form to get added to a team or to change their club team, or, like I said, make changes to anything in the table. So this will make number 2, which is the event rostering process, very, very simple. So basically all players will need to make sure that their player affiliation is correct and updated on that database on the website, which will be public for everybody, which will be released after this AGM concludes, at least 4 weeks before the event. Okay. Then the final roster submission will be due 2 weeks before the event. It'll be super easy. Whoever it is, the coach, the captain, the club admin, will just have to submit jersey number, first name and last name, because we have all their information already. And then the event leadership will just need to confirm that all of those players are affiliated with your club team on the player affiliation database. And if they are, then you're good to go. And if they are not, then they will not be eligible to play. So you don't have to compile USA Field Hockey membership numbers. You don't have to compile, city, state, here's why they qualify, here's why they don't qualify. Have the player fill out the form at any point in the year. If they move to your city in December, have them do it in December. Then it'll be ready for April. You can do it at any point during the year. They can go in there, submit the form. They'll get put on the player affiliation database as part of your club. And then the rostering process is just names and jersey numbers, and the event leadership, whether that's the regional leader or the USFHL board for NCCs, will just go check the player affiliation database and make sure that they are on your club team. Okay. Again, we'll answer all these questions. This year is going to be the first year we roll this out, so we'll see how it goes. We'll get feedback and we'll go from there. But we're really hoping that it simplifies the process for everybody. All right, so the next slide is going to be on free agents. Okay, so the main objectives with the free agent process is we want everybody to be able to play, right? If you live in Montana, right, there's probably not a large field hockey community in Montana, but we'd really, really like to help you find a team if you want to play at RCCs or NCCs. Same as Ohio. I mean, I know that club teams exist in Ohio, but currently they're not traveling for any of our events. So free agent players, so players who don't geographically qualify for any of their local, for a local participating club, can fill out a form, and this will also be on the website. It'll be just a free agent form or a join a club form. They can fill this out at any point during the year, and we're looking at the left side of the slide here under join a club, and they'll fill out the form. They'll be offered to clubs based on their player eligibility standards. So this is really us helping people find clubs and connecting different people to organizations that participate. And then they can participate with that club throughout the entire annual season. They can go to their plan, they can go to their RCC, they can go to their NCC. And this eliminates the need to, have a last ditch effort to pair people for a single tournament. And it starts to help create that local growth and that player continuity between events and between years, and that commitment and player development that we are trying to promote. Now, we do understand the need for free agents at some of these tournaments, like the National Club Championship. So if you look on the right side, the women's division will not have free agent assignments in 2026 for National Club Championship. There's a large saturation of women that play field hockey across the country, whether those are post-collegiate athletes or international women or players who just played college club or high school or whatever it is. So free agents, like I said, can apply at any point in time in the year. We'll get them connected, help build clubs rosters throughout the year, and not just wait for a National Club Championship. But every women's team is obviously qualifying for NCCs through a full roster at RCC. So we'll see how this goes, but we do think that there's a significant portion of women in the United States. Now for the men's side, we will be supporting clubs with free agents at National Club Championship. And this is actually a bit of a pivot from the rules that were in first this last year. So please bear with us. We're really trying to take in the feedback that we hear from you guys and the experiences that people have and try to move from there. So this year, the players who will be eligible for playing as free agents at NCCs are actually the players who have already participated in a play-in event or an RCC that same annual season and did not qualify. So if you play in a play-in or you play in an RCC and your team does not qualify for the National Club Championship, you are eligible to play as a free agent. So we're hoping that the same competitive pool of players are interested in playing in NCC, and we'll pair them randomly with a club at the National Club Championship. So the process will be as such. The RCCs will finish at the end of May. In early June, hopefully as soon as the last RCC is finished, an interest form will open up. This will be for men's National Club Championship free agents. And we'll have it open for a period of time. And then players will be assigned randomly to teams that need them at the National Club Championship in order of the form being submitted. So we'll let you know when the form is going to open up. So you know, let's say it's like 12 p.m. on a Wednesday or something. And then in order of people filling out the form, those players will be randomly assigned to teams for the National Club Championship so that we can make sure every single men's team has a fully fleshed out roster and can compete across the 2.5 days at a high level. Because this is a random assignment, there will be no requesting a team or anything like that. Players will, if they don't show up because they don't like the team they got placed on, again, it's going to be totally random, then they will not be eligible to participate as a free agent again for a certain period of time. Okay. Now we're almost there. Our next policy is this new club incorporation process. So some of you might remember this past nationals, we had a team called Rocky Mountain, and they were consisted of 3 different cities: Salt Lake City, Phoenix, and Denver, Colorado. So that's a good example of a group of people who this new club incorporation process will help get involved. So I believe Kendra used the word entrepreneurial. So these are entrepreneurial areas that are trying to participate and trying to be more competitive and trying to grow their local structured club base. And we want to support them as best as we possibly can. So we also think it's super important to put in a process so that it maintains the objectives of the national championship pathway that we've been talking about for the past 30 minutes and the player eligibility standards that we also just talked about. while enabling these areas to help bring them, help them get involved, help them meet different people, help them grow their local areas. So this is our solution for that, and these clubs will be labeled. So you can see which clubs are, you know, an incorporating club or a developing club. But basically our support will be based on the critical mass determination. So if there is an area that, you know, already has a lot of members, they're already going to other adult tournaments, they play on AstroTurf, maybe they do, maybe they don't, and you know they're in an area with NCAA field hockey programs, and this isn't mutually all of these. It could be one or more of them, but that's kind of how we're looking at critical mass. But if you're a club and you're in a critical mass area and you want to participate, we're still going to help you. Year one, that club will be paired with another club with similar status in order to participate. Year two, hopefully they'll attempt to bring their own team, and we will help them, support them by providing free agents to fill in the roster, kind of similar to what like Seattle Jets, for example, had a lot of free agent support this year to come to National Club Championship, which was great. And then in year three, the club would ideally bring their own team, right? If you already have a large group of adults, hopefully that exposure, that experience, and that support that are provided in the first 2 years are able to spur the growth or inspire the growth locally and get more people on board so you can bring your own club to a national championship pathway event after those first 2 years. Now, there's also a lot of clubs out there that maybe only have, you know, 6 to 7 members like total. And we want to help these people to participate too. So that's this developing club support. So let's say, you know, you're in an area, let's use my Montana example again. There's 5 of you, you play together, you really want to play at a high competitive level. There's 5 of you in Bozeman, you know, obviously that would be unrealistic to expect a club like that to be able to bring a group to a national championship pathway event within the player eligibility standards. So they could apply. And again, these standards are, I don't think I mentioned this yet. These statuses need to be applied for. So that club, and call it Bozeman, Montana, could apply for developing club status. And we would pair those interested players with another club so that they could participate and experience the events. Then we would hopefully help them grow locally so that they can be paired with another club the next year. And then they can reapply for status again based on their new situation. Or they could try to bring their own club after that, or their own team after that. So this is the support that we're going to offer new clubs based on the areas that they're, how much critical mass they have. Now, these are only for clubs, these statuses that these clubs can apply for. These are only for clubs that do not already have a participating club within 50 miles of their home field. So if another club pops up in DC, there's a large saturation of players already there. They would be expected, of course, to bring their own club team to a national championship pathway event. That said, we're happy to offer other resources to help that kind of club grow. So please reach out. You know, we'll help you get contacted with fields. We'll help you get contacted with other adult players and teams in the area for local tournaments or recreational growth or anything like that. But from a national championship pathway perspective, these statuses and this support of being able to helping teams bring a team is only for clubs outside of that do not have a participating club within 50 miles already. Okay. All right, now a little bit of the fun stuff. So these are our club rankings. You can look for your team either in the women's or the men's, which is really exciting. But we've basically used the same club ranking process as USA Field Hockey. So any of the national championship pathway events over the past 2 years, that's 2024 RCC or NEFA League 2025 and National Club Championship, and then the same for 2025 and the play-in event as well for the South that had a play-in event. Those points were tallied up, and these are your top clubs in the country based on the last 2 years' performance. So this will be on our website. You'll be able to see the full club rankings when we post it, and we're going to keep this updated every 2 years. And the big kicker is that these rankings are going to help us seed teams to create the appropriate national club championship pools. So based on how you do in the RCC, these club rankings will be updated, and then we'll be able to appropriately put clubs in pools so that the number 1 team doesn't also have a pool with the number 2 team, and they're playing for seeding. So this is going to help guide us in that. And it's also just an exciting thing because now, the Greenwich Women's Club, even though we won national club championship, they can go say that they're the top club in the country. So the club rankings are really cool, and they'll be on our website, and they'll be updated a few times during the year after events, like the play-in qualifier and regional club championship and national club championship. Okay. The next thing is the bid allocation. So for 2026, we're going to continue the previous process of assigning bids, and that's just USFHL board based on the number of teams participating that year in past years, and number of bids assignments. So you can look on the left side about how many bids are going to go towards each region, and these are those updated regions that I walked you through earlier in this presentation. They're champions, so Atlanta on the women's side and DC Dragons on the men's side will have their auto bids. And then after that, you can see in that 2026 column the number of bids per region for this next year. As mentioned, the central region, if there's any teams in that central region, they'll be playing in through the Northeast region with the women for those 3 bids, and the East region for the men for those two bids, well, 3 bids out if you include DC Dragons. And their participation will help them earn a bid to nationals for the next year for their own region, the central region. There's a couple notes on this right side. I'll let you read it, on your own time. But the important one is this one in the bottom here, circled in red. We are hoping to move towards a performance-based bid allocation moving forward. So basically empowering and giving the regions the ability to, I don't want to say dictate, that's probably a strong word, but giving the regions the ability to influence how many bids they get in the future. And the way this is going to be allocated is based on 2 things. One is the number of clubs that participated in the National Club Championship pathway in that region. So that's the play-in qualifier, regional club championships, and national club championships. And as well as the performance of whichever clubs were at NCCs, their performance at the national level will show, the level of the region as a whole. And those 2 things will go in to a nice mathematical calculation that will spit out how many bids each region will get in the future. And this will be agile. It'll change each year. So, if you only have 4 teams participate and then next year you have 9, then the year after that you might get more. If you finish 12th one year and then you finish 2nd the next year, that might also influence it as well. So this will be like an agile, fluid way of making sure that the top teams in the country are the ones getting the bids to nationals. But for this year, just look at the left side. Those are the bids each region is going to get in 2026. All right, I'm almost done. All right, so now the USFHL, one of the very first slides that I was talking to showed, this high performance championship track. And one of the big things about that is having professionalism, right? Like look good, feel good, play good, people will be fans, etc. So in the spirit of that, we've put together a 5-year plan to professionalism, and any teams participating at nationals, RCCs, or play-in will be required to abide by these standards or requirements that you see here on the page. This is a phased approach, so you don't need to go, spend $5,000 between now and nationals next July. But the goals obviously here are to look professional, to develop players, play structured hockey, and then start to create brands and cultivate that local community and fan base. So for next year, and this is probably the most important, relevant one, for next year, the National Club Championship, all teams that participate will be required to have uniforms. It was weirdly difficult to write a definition for what a uniform is, but basically that's 2 different jersey tops, a light one and a dark one, no mesh, no, basic cotton t-shirts, matching shorts or skirts, exact carbon copy matching, and then matching socks. So if you have a black jersey, you should have black socks. If you have a white jersey, you should have white socks. Everyone on the team should look the same. And this will start to elevate, the image and the brand of USFHL and these national championship events, and start to give some credibility to the level of hockey and the seriousness and professionalism of the teams that are participating. Oops, sorry. The last thing I'll mention on this slide is USFHL will provide as support to people as needed. So if you need help with any of these 4 things in the middle, uniforms, coaches, team names, team logos, please reach out. We're happy to help. We'll give you apparel contacts, connections for coaches, creative design support, whatever it is that you need, just reach out. We're happy to support. We don't want, any club can't participate because of one of these. These are really supposed to elevate the field hockey in the country and elevate each club and each team individually as well. So we're going to provide support wherever you guys need it. Just please let us know. All right, last slide for me. So these are our release dates and deadlines for this year. So currently the South has a play-in event in December. That registration closes on October 4th. It was released registration was released, I think at the end of August. So if you plan to play in the play-in qualifier for the South, please make sure you register. The link is right here on this slide. It'll be on the website. It's also on the Instagram. And if it's not yet, it will be. You also should have got an email about it, but please make sure you register before October 4th. Regional club championship. So as I'm sure you guys know, when you're trying to reserve your field time, it's not super black and white where you can just ask for a date and the field says yes or no. Sometimes it's like, well, ask again in January, or, well, we're still waiting for, XYZ team to determine if they need it that weekend. So we'll tell you later. So what we've decided is by November 1st, each regional leader and the USFHL will release these. We'll be able to give estimate dates and locations. So something like, last weekend of March, first weekend of April, block that time in this location to the best of their ability. If they already have the dates and locations, you'll get those then. And then by January 1st, the exact dates and locations and the registration will be open. And it'll be open for about 6 to 8 weeks. And so that we have all the teams in there and ready to register. So the club or admin, or sorry, not the club admin, I've been talking for a while. The event leadership can plan the event according to the number of teams that are going to be there. Nationals, we're going to follow the same process. We're actively working on it. We'll have estimates to you by November 1st. If we have the exact dates and location by then you'll have everything as soon as we have it. And by January 1st, we'll have the exact dates out there. Now, 2 weeks after you qualify, that is going to be your registration deadline. So if your RCC finishes, say, the last weekend of March, then 2 weeks into April will be your registration deadline. Okay, so that is everything about US adult hockey, how we're going to organize it, and the national championship pathway. Lots of really exciting things going on. We're excited to see it grow. We're excited to see how these processes and these policies work this next year. And I will pass it off to Graham next to talk about what it's actually going to physically look like.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Before I just start talking about media and all of the digital and physical touch points that we're working on right now, I just want to remind everyone who's maybe has come late that we do have a question form in the description of the video. And so if you go in there and you submit your questions, we'll have a Q&A section after my section right now, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible. All right, let's jump into it here. Go ahead, Hiddy, if you want to go to the next. There you go. All righty, fantastic. So, our goal as a board when we sort of all stepped into our roles here was we wanted to ensure that members, people seeking to play field hockey, organizers across the country who maybe lead clubs, that anybody could expect the same level of professionalism from USFHL that they would expect from any other modern sport.
Hey, well, we seem to be suffering some technical difficulties with Graham's microphone at the moment. However, I can speak briefly to the website. Hopefully, Graham can step back in at some point.
Does this work?
Lance, we can hear him on the YouTube.
Okay,
good.
Fantastic. All right. So as I was saying, expecting the same level of professionalism from USFHL as they can expect from any other modern sport league or governing body across the country. That's really our goal with sort of this new direction that we've gone with things like our website, things like our registration options, and then making sure that everybody can have a seamless experience with the touch points of our brand. One thing I want to mention is some of that is made possible through some really great collaboration and partnership with USA Field Hockey, who has enabled us to have some great partnerships with the likes of Playbook, which, if you attended National Club Championships this year, was sort of our tournament organizing software where everybody registered. And also we were able to sort of track results from games and so on and so forth through there. Playbook has also really, in addition to making that process more sophisticated and accessible, has assisted us in revamping our website. And the website, our vision for the website going forward is we wanted to rebuild it to be a more central hub for all of the hockey community of the United States. And what we mean by that is by the end of 2025, we'd like to have a lot more core features live for the site. The first one of which Hiddy already mentioned will be going live at the end of this conversation, which is that player database where anybody across the country would be able to check affiliation for players that might want to play with their teams, or if you are curious about your own affiliation or you want to check those things, that will be public for everyone soon. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's the first sort of iteration in this process that we're looking to really create that website to be a resource for everyone and for anyone who is looking to play or discover playing opportunities across the country at the various levels of competitiveness or competition that Hiddy mentioned earlier. Those are all going to be ideally on our website by the end of this year. So that will set us up really nicely for going into 2026 with the regional competitions there, and throughout the rest of the year will hopefully enable more growth, more accessibility, more discoverability for people across the country. The next point is, pretty apparent, I'm sure, for all of us in the digital age. Media and content growth is really important to us. I know everybody's seen lots of great photos that have been taken at previous year's NCCs. A lot of people love the live streams that have been done from the games at NCCs. We obviously want to improve and iterate on those as well. We're going to be prioritizing media capture, so photo, video, live streaming across those competitions nationwide in as many ways as we possibly can. Expanding that digital footprint is incredibly essential for us to drive that visibility, drive growing participation, and then just strengthening the sort of connective tissue between different parts of the country and different hockey communities going forward. Lastly, I want to speak just about brand refresh as well. While I commend Kendra for the strides that she made in creating USFHL as a brand, obviously every brand has to evolve, and we're really exploring some updates to the USFHL logo, some of our colors, the typeface, just to really improve and iterate upon our visual identity across all of the touch points that we have. So for all of the banners that you might see at various competitions in person, or if you visit our website, if you check out our social media, our goal is to really align all of those things, make them congruent with each other, with that sort of modern professional aesthetic that really reflects the progress that we're making as an organization in these exciting times. So again, together, we're really just trying to, these initiatives we're hoping will position us to sort of grow the sport, elevate the athlete experience, elevate the experiences, the positive experiences that people have with our brand and with our competitions, and overall strengthen USFHL as a trusted entity for adult sport in the United States. So with that said, I would like to hand it off to Misham for the Q&A section. And again, please get your questions in there. The question form is in the description of the video if you do have anything that's popped up for you during this time.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and staying all the way through the end. It was really great to hear from everybody. So I do have a couple questions from the responses, and if you guys are still coming up with your questions, please feel free to submit them. We will start off with one of these questions. It says, how would you, as a board, be able to provide more transparency in the free agency selection process? For example, let's say you play D1 hockey and a few of your teammates who are also D1 have started to move across the US. How could the board possibly ensure that those free agents or the free agent requests are not placed with former D1 teammates as well?
You want me to take this, Lance?
Yeah, I mean, I have an opinion on it as well, but I mean, you've sort of spoke to that already in the presentation.
Yeah. So that's a good question. I can jump back to the free agent slide if it's helpful. I'll do that real quick while we're talking to this. But the free agents are, well, two things. One, I assume this is not relevant for the men's side, which is the only division that's going to have free agents at National Club Championship, and those are going to be randomly assigned. So skill and talent level will be taken out of the equation altogether. Now, on this left side, the join a club. So these are free agents around the rest of the country. These are going to be completely based on those player eligibility standards. So if a free agent pops up that lives within 150 miles of another participating club, then they'll be offered to that participating club. If they pop up, like I said, in Montana, then we're going to do, geographically the closest participating club GPS wise to where they are. That's who they'll be offered to. So this free agent form is really a way for us to connect people to their next closest playing opportunity or club organization. Obviously, that might be a little bit further away if they're in Montana than if they're in West Virginia and the location's DC. So the goal here is really to connect people so they can participate and start to grow those relationships rather than, just assigning somebody a team or having to look at skill level and things like that. So to be honest, when people are, quote, assigned, they won't be assigned, they'll be offered. And it's not going to be included in whether or not they play Division I or in high school will not really be relevant to which clubs they're offered to. Lance, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would just add is, I mean, I think you've made it quite clear that the whole process is supposed to be as transparent and as even as it can be. You mentioned the men will be random. It'll be first come, first served, essentially. And then the other one is going to be earlier in the process, and they're going to be essentially offered to their local club. However, I would just like to highlight the comment also said, if someone's Div 1 level and then they're asking their friend to sign up for the free agents, I'd love to see that. We want to get more Div 1 players coming into the free agent portal and being assigned to their local club. I mean, the more that we can get one person engaged who wants to get other people to sign up, the more we can get them engaged, and then the next person, and then the next person. I mean, the way clubs grow is by word of mouth. And I think this process that we've come up with here is going to help make sure that growth is as fair and equitable as it can be.
Cool, thank you. All right, we have another question here. Where can we provide feedback for the locations for plans and the regional division teams?
Graham, do we have a particular contact form or anything on the website that would be good for that? Or is this just going to be a case of reach out to your regional lead for each of those regions?
I would certainly say the regional lead for your region would be the best person to contact about locations, whether you have, a lot of the things that Lance was mentioning about how, having a location to play reliably or host a regional qualifier or any tournament reliably in the US is obviously not an easy task all the time. So if you have a location that is accessible or, you have a connection there, I would say certainly reach out to your regional lead sooner rather than later to maybe get ahead of the planning process and just offer up availability as an option. Obviously, that regional lead is going to have a little more insider influence on sort of what the other teams in the area are, who's traveling from how far. Those will all be factors as well in identifying location, but availability is a huge, huge factor. So I would certainly say if you have a connection, then make that available to your regional lead sooner rather than later. And as far as providing feedback on, if a certain location is maybe difficult for you to get to, things of that nature, we will have a place on our website where people can provide feedback there too.
Cool, thank you.
Just to add, sorry, Michelle, just before we move on, just to add one other thing. And, we've even looked at the venue for nationals and whether it can be moved and things like that. There are a lot of restricting factors in where we can host a tournament like that, not least of all trying to find two fields at a very close distance from each other. But we are aware that that location and the travel distance impacts teams, and we do want to make sure we're doing our best to be fair and even as best we can.
Cool, thank you. All right, we have another question. Is there a way that USFHL can help fund some of the professional projects like uniforms, field times, coaches, etc., to take the load off of individual and club teams and or sponsors?
As of this time, we are just transitioning in our new treasurer. So we are getting in our position where we are with all of that. I will hand over to Kendra to see if she has some resources that can be useful as well. However, I can also tell you that we are working both with and independent, both with USA Field Hockey and independently, to grow partnerships with service providers and opportunities in the marketplace to help with things like uniforms and help with those types of things. It is a ongoing process, and we will continue to update and make those services available as we can. Kendra, do you have anything you might be able to add on that side as well?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And I would want to take it as a takeaway to give details on this. But what I would do is look to the USA Masters community that has done a really phenomenal job through leadership to build out their sponsorship for athletes that are paying, and then also building out the business model to help supplement the costs that go along with that. And so leveraging that, USA Field Hockey partnerships, as well as building out the business model of USFHL to figure out those opportunities to be able to help supplement in this way. So nothing specific right now, but it's certainly on the radar as far as our business plan over the next 5 years to be in a position where, we can be active in that financial space.
Definitely.
Thank you, Kendra. So I don't have any more questions to pose to you all. The other questions seem to have been answered through the presentation. Who wants to, send us off?
I'll take it to wrap it up. So lastly, I would just like to once again thank everyone for sitting here through this entire presentation. I'd also like to thank all the members of the board that have helped create this and helped put in hours of work to get us where we were for today's presentation. I hope we've answered a lot of questions for everyone that's been watching this, and hopefully helped to get you excited about what the future holds for the USFHL, not just this year, but for many years going forward. And just one last time to reiterate, we are stronger together. So if you have feedback, if you have questions, please bring them to us. We want to work with you to help grow this game, this beautiful game we all love around the US. So thank you once again, everyone. I hope you will have a great evening, and that will be good night from us, I think.
Thanks, guys.